Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the AJM Mastermind, we officially welcome you for this session on performance. Jen, if you can allow me share the presentation because.
Let me see if I have the right to allow to share. Let me see if I can have the right. If I don't, then you will share your presentation, I fear. Just a moment, we sort out some few things, then I can just give me a few minutes left.
Sure. So in the meantime, probably
please rename your so that I can ask Jen to make you a co-host.
Where do I rename it from?
Just click on it, end up on ini chat, then click on it. Just click on kwa hizo nini hapo kwa people kwa participant. Then click on the three dots. Then rename
the three dots.
Yes.
I have the invite, copy invite link and remove from the toolbar. Ama more hapa kwa more.
Hapo kwa more. Nini kuna hapo kwa rename.
On the participants.
Wacha nikurename.
Okay, please do.
Do that. Okay. And proceed.
We can proceed as you. When it's ready, you let me know.
Okay.
Basically, we can just.
Your presentation, I can still share on the other side.
Okay.
On my side, so that we're able to move a bit fast.
So what I do. Let me just share to you through the Gmail. Your Gmail done, eh?
I think that is okay.
Just allow me to go through the Gmail. I share with you the documents, and then you could present for us so that you can be able to move very, very, very fast.
Once it's posted, please let me know so that I'm able to.
I have named it Faith, so you should be checking it now. I have named the topic of that. I've just named it as Faith so that you're able to get it for the interest of time. Just check your Gmail.
Still waiting. Just maybe a few more minutes for it. I can digest.
Have you got it?
Just a minute. Just a moment. Yes, let me download it.
Okay. So basically, team, today we are handling about performance in tough situations. Remember, at work, we have so much things, especially resonating around employees. So one amongst them that truly affects employees are the hidden things that probably we as HR professionals need to really dig deeper into it and try and understand how much in these current trends and era, how best we can be in a position to handle them for effective productivity amongst the employees. So probably we can just figure out a situation. Probably we can relate it through the last year or even in the recent times while at work. So probably let's imagine of sicknesses, a sickness, most recent of duties, burnouts among employees. How could we as human resource professionals advise on better way to handle this? So because organizations have really invested heavily in financial forecasting, risk management, operational continuity. So, but there's one risk that remains consistently undermanaged. And this is the human capacity risk, things to do with pregnancy, illnesses, and burnouts. So these are just rare events that, and to some extent, are not unexpected disruptions. So they are predictable realities of a working human system. And yet still, most organizations are not really prepared for these uncertainties. So we as HRs need to really think further beyond our policies, beyond the structures of how well we can be able to accommodate these, because most of them are seasonal and very rare.
You have the host right now, you can share.
Oh, I can share.
Yes, you have the host right.
Okay, thank you. We go. Are you able to see my screen, Dan?
Yes, perfect. Your screen, just put it on slideshow mode.
Sorry?
Go to slideshow.
Okay, so I go to view.
There's review recorded slideshow. Just go.
Yes,
slideshow, then from the beginning.
From the beginning?
Yes. Yes, there. Thank you.
There we go.
Yes, I think you're good to go.
I think now we are set to go. So many organizations still experience sudden drops in productivity, especially around these scenarios, loss of top performing talents, strained teams, and reactive leadership. It is not because the employees have failed, but the systems have failed to adapt to the changing scenarios among the employees. So probably now we can challenge ourselves and ask ourselves, how about if this real situation is not that the employees are sick, or other employees go on maternity leave, but our performance management systems are not built for vulnerabilities? What if the organizations that will truly win going forward are not the ones with the strongest policies? So it is our time as HRs try to think beyond these realities. So we go straight to our question of reflection this evening is declining performance a problem team, a people problem, or a system problem? Did the employee change, or the system fail to adapt the change? So basically our discussions and the topic of discussions will be around this, so that you're able to now see how best would have adapted to this change of scenarios among the employees. In our key performance model, we already know that performance is equals to output plus support and fairness. Now, if we talk of output, we talk of KPIs, we talk of targets and deliverables. When we talk of support, we talk of resources, flexibility, and work adjustments. When we talk of fairness, so where we have no bias or legal compliance or objective decisions. Now, our topic of discussion will resonate around this, but then we have to see how fair, how adaptive are our policies and structures to these very uncommon and rare cases of employees at work. So we already know that none of the scenarios could be pregnancy, disability, burnouts, so much more that we have discussed. These are just a few among the many. So I don't know who is going to. Dan, are you able to admit these people in the waiting room?
Yes, I'm admitting. Let them not worry. I'm doing the admission.
Okay, sawa. Thank you, Dan. So pregnancy it's predictable work event and not a performance issue, but a capacity and planning issue. So the narrative ought to change to sustain performance continuity as capacity changes. Now, how do this capacity change? Basically, because of the pregnancy scenario, I'm not able to come to work early. I'm not probably able to work long distances to visit my clients. I'm not able to sit for long hours. And probably sometimes I just do not want to do something just at that particular time. It's not that I am not sick as an employee, but a condition under just a lifetime, a season life, a season life situation has brought me to this situation. Now, we as HR, how are our policies and structures vulnerable enough to accommodate this employee for this particular time, for this season in her lifetime? So we as HR professionals need to bring this into the attention of our bosses, the attention of our line managers, the attention of our colleagues. That when we build pregnancy, we need it has to be inclusive. We have to have inclusive performance framework. We need to redesign KPIs and look it from the perspective of an output-based and not an outcome-based. Introduce performance continuity plan, introduce flexible work as a performance tool. So I want us, these are just some of the scenarios or strategies that will enable our employees, our female employees at work, adapt to the changes they are facing at that particular time. So we go look at them one by one. So how about building a pregnancy inclusive framework? We want to really digress, to really dig deeper into this and try and see building a pregnancy inclusive performance framework as a strategy to adapt that scenario of an employee at that particular time. One, we have a pre-disclosure. This is whereby we are able now to see, yes, this is I am becoming. So what do we as HR needs to really build at that particular time is the stability of this employee by maintaining standard performance expectations. So, but how are we going to do this? Probably going to redesign the KPIs. If you are looking at an output of as she should be able to see like 10 clients at this particular period of time, how about to see the deliverable of what is the output that has been created by me seeing maybe 2 or 3 or 4 employees at that clients at that particular time, simply because I am not able to see like 10, 20 employees, probably because I'm not able to sit down for long, probably because I'm not able to stand up for a long time, and probably I want at this particular time I'm not able to be at work between 8 to 5 in the evening. So basically, we could be able to look at that and try see how best we can be able to really redesign that job KPI. Pregnancy period, we should maybe adjust productivity and flexible KPIs. This is what I was just talking about. Dan, are you able to see this other side of the screen?
Yes.
Because probably my screen is halfway.
You could, if you feel that you can just revert back. You can press escape.
What are you saying, Dan? I lost you.
You can just press escape so that you can return back to the normal mode. But yeah, your screen is okay. We can see it perfectly well.
Oh,
yes,
you can
okay.
see my screen, eh?
Yeah,
Okay,
you can proceed.
Okay, sawa. So we were on the pregnancy concept. So this is where now we're able to see the capacity and planning issue. It is predictable, yes, because we're able to see. So we need to be strategic about that point. How do we sustain the performance continuity as capacity changes? Now, this at this point should be a leadership scenario, because probably the line managers are there on the receivership. But we as HRs should be able to now come up with a strategy on how to accommodate this pregnancy concept at that particular time. We proceed. I think we want the pre-disclosure time. We've been able to see, but now that is the time we need to maintain standards, performance, and expectation, disclosure, the transition. You roll risk assessment and workload mapping. This is able to now to see this employee is not able to meet like 20 clients as before, but able to meet 10. So how we able now to redesign the KPI now, and how at that particular time now we should be able now to spread the risk. Remember we should be having our backups. If this employee is not able to meet the 10, the 20 employees, how are we able now to cap this so that we're able to meet we're able to maintain the outputs with the same capacity change. Probably there we're able now to redesign the KPI as a support system. Now during the maternity period, we need to ensure work continuity. This is when now we have the delegation and temporary resourcing. I will take an assumption that we normally see sometimes the reliever openings. We need to have the shadow employees. Now this is the time now to be able now, maybe at the 4th, the 5th month, we as HRs need to have really planned ahead of that. This is to enable the continuity of productivity and operations. And then, of course, return to work. This is now able now to see. Remember, when the female employees returning back to work, we don't expect the 100% output productivity. So maybe we can be able to have a curve, a return to work framework. Probably between the 1st and the 2nd month, this is the output that this employee is able to deliver. Between the 2nd and the 3rd month, this is the amount of productivity this employee is able to deliver. And now during the full recovery, probably now we're now going to experience the normalcy. So probably now having an inclusive performance framework among the employees is one of the strategies now to accommodate the female employees at work. We've talked of redesigning KPIs. We are now making it as an output based instead of outcome based. This is when now we shift from an 8-hour presence to weekly deliverables completed. From travel targets probably to client retention. So as much as I've not been able to go to the field, but how many clients have I been able to retain? Physical meetings, probably nowadays we have digital engagement outcomes. You have the virtual, you have the hybrid and all that. So we'll be able now to accommodate all these scenarios at workplace. We have performance continuity plan. I think this is what we've done. This is what we've discussed. Having a structured plan ensuring business performance continues seamlessly. We do role risk mapping. What roles are critical? Who handles this? What tasks are physically demanding? So how do we handle that at this particular time? What can be delegated? You see? The other aspect is maybe workload redistribution for that particular period of time, just to accommodate this employee, because it is a temporary condition. This is not a permanent. Remember, pregnancy is not permanent, but just a scenario, an event in a lifetime of a female employee. And then, of course, you have the capability backup strategy, where you have the shadow employee. This is where the relievers come in, and probably short-term upskilling. Probably now, with this, we would see in terms of maybe succession planning, upskilling the other talents at workplace, and then, of course, timeline alignment. During pregnancy, during the maternity period, and during the comeback, where we're able now to map these roles and having a curve and a roadmap towards really enabling this employee fully fledged in her roles as normally. So probably this just to balance this employee at this particular time of the year of a lifetime scenario. We also have flexible work as a performance tool, but not as a benefit. We understand these situations, especially since we've experienced this at the workplaces. Remember, these are very practical events at workplace. So we are just able to relate exactly what really happens and probably what we need to adjust better. Nowadays, we have the hybrid method of work. We have adjusted working hours, task-based schedules, remote delivery models. When you're able now to bring this into to making it very practical, we're able now to accommodate these employees at these lifetime events. Remember, we still emphasize that pregnancy is not a permanent situation of an employee, but it's just a lifetime scenario. But see, these are some of the strategies that you've implemented at workplace. We're even going to have employee retentions, employer brand, and all that. They may look very small, but it has very big impact to employees. Manager capability. Remember, we as HRs at this particular time, it is our signature as HRs. Probably really educating our colleagues, our line supervisors, our project managers on how to handle these scenarios at this particular time. And there's a tool there. If we can do a care tool where now we're able to clarify expectations, adjust workloads, regular check-ins, and empathy. Remember how small they would be, but they really have a very big impact to employees. So most performance issues during pregnancy come from untrained managers because probably they do not have knowledge and concept of how to manage these scenarios. Like now, we would be having some bias awareness, whereby when we have some pregnancy at workplace, we associate them with less capacity, basically because they are not able to handle that task at that particular time. And back then, they were able to really do it very perfectly. So why can't we, as line managers or as employers, why would we not accommodate this employee at this particular time? So some would see that as realistic but fair targets. Some targets would be very unrealistic to the female employees at work at this particular time of a lifetime scenario. So we should be in a position to really sensitize our line supervisors and managers on how to accommodate this. And I think we have discussed this earlier on how we can adjust the KPIs, the deliverables, the working methods, and all that. So it can be simply simplified by having a care model, whereby we're able to clarify expectations for that particular time, adjust workloads, regular check-ins. You see, just having some empathy towards this employee. I think this is more about it is at a leadership level. So if pregnancy affects ratings without structural adjustment, the system and not the employee is flawed. So when you do not have a very good system to support these scenarios of employees at a particular time in their lifetime, then our systems are flawed and not the employees. And how do we mitigate this? We audit our performance ratings of pregnant employees, track the promotion patterns, and enforce decision transparency. We may not say that we are really exclusively separating the pregnant or rather these special kind of employees at this particular time, but rather define them by that scenario at that particular time. Let us define them for their situations at that particular time, because I am not operating at my 100% like the other male employee at that particular time. So at that particular time, we'll be having a fair definition of our roles. Probably maybe if a promotion comes and maybe I am unique in my own way at this particular time, then define me for this particular time that I am in, and just be fair and very transparent. Probably if time allows, we'll be able to see how we can clearly do this. The reintegration strategy, this now we have the comeback plan, where now I've from maternity leave and I'm now back. I am not expected to really perform at 100%. Now, can we have a work plan for these employees? I think this is what we have discussed further. Where say the month 1, I'm able to perform from 50 to 60% of my workload. So could you accommodate me for this at this particular time? In month 2, I'm able to do the 70 to 80% of my workload. And probably in month 3, I'm able to really operate as normalcy. So we as HRs at this particular time, we should be in a position to really sensitize this and affirm this to our line managers and the supervisors. So would we have some reactions towards this? How do we feel? How are our systems at workplace towards this? Probably, Dan, would you have a reaction on this? Are our systems really very adaptive to these particular scenarios at workplace?
Maybe they could have their responses in the chat.
Yes, we can have some responses in chat.
But they can also we'll have an open mic towards the end of the session after maybe my presentation, then we can still have a discussion.
Yeah, we can be able to look at. But if you have a question, you can still put it on the chat so that you're able now to really dive into it in a very practicable way. But remember, we're just having these scenarios as HRs, and now best we can be able to really look to implement this at the workplace, and maybe even at this particular time relate on how best we can do this. Somebody is highlighting somewhere, or is this my highlight? So we can go to the next scenario. Remember, we talked of pregnancies, we talked of illnesses, we have other scenarios, maybe of disability. But for the interest of time, we may be able to handle two. But the strategy and mechanisms are more or less similar. So yeah, we can proceed now to illnesses, and this often comes with burnouts, probably having a short-term illness. Maybe I've got some accidents, I'm not able to perform well. Maybe I have a sick baby, I am not able to attend fully to my duties. We're having a lot of crosses, I don't know. Yeah, so we proceed. Illness does not really disrupt performance, but lack of resilience system does. So if we have systems at workplace that's not able to accommodate this type of life scenario, then our systems are flawed. Now, how I want us to see on how best we can be able to handle this at workplaces. It is more or less similar to the pregnancies, but maybe more or less the same. We have 5 strategies that you're able now to look at this, the work health and performance continuity model. I would really relate this to a specific employee and probably pose a question to us. Someone is talking?
Proceed. Let me just find the person muting. And just proceed.
Okay. So we can be able now to really, this is so practical. We have the pre-illness, we have the early signs, the active illness and recovery and post-recovery. So the pre-illness now, this is where now we should focus on some preventions. If an employee comes to a supervisor and says, probably maybe this is what I'm facing, probably I have something terminal and all that. Now, how do we sensitize our line supervisors, our colleagues, our managers towards this? We need to build a resilient system. If I'm not able to come to work at 8 and I'm able to make it at 10, and probably be able to leave, maybe I would be able to compensate between the 8 to 10 work schedules, then we should be in a capacity to accommodate that, to accommodate such scenarios. It is so unfortunate that I could be coming to work, I could be present, but not productive. So let us make our systems really accommodate such scenarios. And listen, the detection, identify the performance shift. Probably I was able to, I was at my 80% during my normal working capacity. And at this particular time, I'm just able to deliver the 40 to 60%. So how do we as line managers accommodate this? How do we accommodate this? Probably having some adjustments also on the KPIs. If I'm not able to accommodate the 80, if I'm not able to attend to 20 employees, how do we redefine my KPIs? Probably look at it this way. How about we say the output of the attended clients has risen from 60 to 90. And remember that particular time, I have just attended to 10 clients. So we should have some bias. Let us not have some biasness towards that. Just to accommodate this employee for this lifetime situation. Dan, continue admitting, or I just admit and proceed?
Admitting, just let them admit. I'm doing that.
Okay. So probably I will not be able to really go through this dive deeper because it is so practical. Active illness, adaptive, adjust the workload. At this particular time, for us to be able to accommodate this employee just for this particular time, let us adjust our workloads. Remember, we adjust the workload. We are not lowering the standards, maintaining the standards, but on a different redefined KPI. And then, of course, we have the recovery, the reintegration period. I am now really on the recovery journey. Now, during my first probably month, I'm able to perform the 60% of my capacity. The second month, I am able to perform up to the 80%. And probably during my recovery period, now I'm able to perform the 100%. To as much as you're trying to accommodate this, let us also track track on the performance, track on the patterns of these occurrences, and even advise further. Remember, there's so many things that can come around this, and I think on further discussions and probably during the further trainings towards this, we have the capacity building of employees. How do you handle the disability? Because I may be sick, but how do I define my sickness? To what period is the company accommodating my sickness scenarios? Yeah. So probably now beyond this discussion, there are so many other mechanisms that can be relooked towards this. And probably for the interest of time, we may not really be able to really dig this deeper. I think we have discussed this further, shifting from the attendance-based to capacity-based performance management, where we're able to remove the stigma and introduce the intelligent performance management, whereby we may not be able to really concentrate on the absent, too many absent, but what capacity is available. I am available at 60%. So how can you accommodate me at 60%? Yeah, we shift from the mindset of performance has dropped and how do we optimize the output within this reduced capacity? So probably during our trainings, these are some of the scenarios that you may be able to dig deeper and try and understand at a deeper angle. But I think these are very practicable scenarios at workplaces, and even beyond this discussion, we may be able to sit and reflect on these lifetime scenarios at workplaces. Building illness responsive KPI system, introduce adaptive performance metrics, same standards, different delivery mechanisms. This is what we've discussed, and probably remember we said it's more or less the same. The capacity workforce mapping at my 70, at my 40, and at my 30. It is also good to emphasize that there are other mechanisms that define these frameworks. Remember, it is also good to put in place how comfortable is my employer adapting me at 60% and for what period of time? You see? So to as much as we are trying to accommodate this, but we as HRs see further, see beyond this. And I think this is more, we are going to discuss more of this during our trainings. Performance, continuity planning. Also, this along the frame of the workload frame and the reintegration periods. We're able to now to define the role clarity analysis, task segmentation, cross-skilling, and backup ownership model. I think this also we have discussed from the pregnancy scenario, and for the interest of time, we may not be able to repeat it. Manager capability building. Now, this is the biggest risk factor. If our line managers and supervisors are not in a position to really define these roles well, now they contribute to the faults, to the flawed systems at our workplaces. It is up to us, the HRs, to bring this, to sensitize this to our supervisors and line managers. Remember, by extension, they do what we really do. We oversee, advise, and champion. The PES model, this I would call the PES model, and different from the care model from the pregnancy, just to try and have some attachments towards these two different scenarios, whereby we prioritize the critical task. So remember, it doesn't stop here. When we prioritize the critical tasks, so what happens to those critical tasks? There's something that needs to be defined beyond this discussion. We need to sit and reflect and be able to clearly advise how do we handle the critical tasks that these employees are not able to handle at this particular time. Of course, adjust expectations, but remember we need not to lower the standards, check in regularities, and empower the employees. All this can only happen when you have the vulnerable systems at workplaces, whereby we may not be able to really, our performance should not be compromised at any given time. This is just or less the same from what we have just. We will address the presentism. What does this mean? I may be able to come to work Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, but sick. And if I'm sick, of course, productivity is compromised. So when we really bring forth a good working culture, we should be in a position to really eradicate this. This is a very bad scenario at workplaces, and it happens so often. It happens so often where we have systems that do not adapt to these life scenarios. I think, Dan, I hand it over to you for the interest of time, because all this just the reintegration strategy. This now we have the comeback, the comeback formula of employees, probably during the recovery journeys and all that. So I think we have discussed this further. Beyond all these discussions, we have policies and all that. So we see this beyond the policy. Remember, these strategies are also guided by the policies. And just as I've said, the structures we put in place should adhere to the goals of the organization. And really, policy are true guidelines and definitions of our organizational goals. So you have the sick leave policy, the flexible work policy, the return to work guidelines, just among other strategies that we'll be able to put in place. And I think what I would leave with us, just a reflection, we as HRs, how would our systems really survive a legal challenge if maybe an employee comes to work and you're not able to seek and you're not able to accommodate these employees, and probably we eventually fire them. So, and if the employee seeks a legal path, how do our systems survive the legal challenge? Does our system really support employees? This is a reflection that I will leave towards the HRs and really reflect deeper. And how best, and if not, how best do we work towards this? And just my closing remarks before I hand it over to my colleague Dan. The biggest risk is not life situations. It is the poor performance systems. The biggest risk is not life situations, but rather poor performance systems. And performance does not stop, it should adapt. Once we have a closure towards this, then we may be able now to really thump up our chest and say our systems really work. So that particular time, I think I hand it over to Dan, probably to now see how do we handle these life scenarios on a legal perspective. Remember, all this discussion that we've had has just been from the HR, from the human resource, or rather from the HR perspective, from the HR perspective down. Suppose our systems failed and we have the employees who have seek the legal path. Probably I applied my maternity leave, it was rejected, and I had no option, just go for probably an unpaid leave, because sometimes we'd have employers who would even compromise the female employees maybe to apply the unpaid leave or do a separation and all that. Probably I'm sick, I've had a terminal illness, and my employer has not been in a position to accommodate me. And I have now decided to seek a legal pathway to pursue my right. So how would we handle this from a legal perspective? Dan, over to you.
Thank you, Faith. Please give me a reaction, a thumbs up if you're enjoying the session. And of course, if we are really meeting your expectation, Faith, you can stop sharing your screen so that you allow me to share my screen. Please, I need as more reaction as possible. Thank you, Wilfred. Thank you, Elsie. Put your comments on the chat box. Faith, please stop sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. So put your questions on the chat box. So please confirm if you can see my screen, Faith.
Not yet, Dan. Not yet. Yes, we can see.
All right. So I'll start with a scenario. I'll start with a scenario. I'll start with a question, and just to be able to put what Faith has discussed into perspective. For the past few weeks, we have been handling series on performance management as we build up onto our summit. Normally, we pick up. Faith, you could also help me admit people.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are building up on performance. We started by building on capability of performance on your line managers. How do you build performance capabilities? We handled performance improvement plans on our last session, and today we are just handling just a special case, and we are picking pregnancy is not only the special case that happens at workplace, but it is among the gray areas that normally it's the gray area that HR are finding it difficult to address. So this particular employee was hired as an auditor. was hired as an auditor and was on a 2-month probation. During her employment, the employer believes that her performance is poor, but no formal appraisal had been conducted. There's no structured feedback that was given. There was no documentation discussed, and no documented discussion had taken place. A few months later, this particular employee applied for the maternity leave, and the employer declined the maternity leave and advises this particular employee to apply study leave. I don't know who was doing this. So first, please help me admit people. So shortly, the employee was terminated. This particular employee was terminated, and this particular employee was terminated on grounds of poor performance, misconduct, and desertion of duty. The employee went to court, just of course, to challenge for unfair termination, and she maintained that she was never informed of her performance issues. No appraisal of discussion ever took place. The termination was linked to her pregnancy. Now, I'll pose the question to the group. Was the employer justified in terminating this particular employee on poor performance in this situation? Someone courageous can unmute and just give our opinion in like 1 minute. Someone courageous can unmute. Two, can an employer deny maternity leave because an employee is on probation? Can you deny an employee paternity because they are on probation? Anyone courageous that can unmute, and anyone that is courageous that can unmute?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Fine. An employer cannot deny an employee maternity leave despite the fact they are on contract or on probation. It might not be the full number of months because they are on probation, but the number of days should be calculated in such a way that they take care of that probation period. So denying an employee maternity leave is illegal, according to me.
Any person with a contrary opinion, an employee is on probation, deny them maternity leave. Yes, who is this, please?
I think I'd like to contribute. Denying an employee maternity leave simply because they're on probation, I think it will be one form of discrimination, which is poor or unfair labor practice. So I don't think it's correct to deny an employee maternity simply because they're on probation.
The rest can, please, thank you for that. So the rest could also type their responses in the chat. Now, let's be honest. Life happens. Life happens at work.
May I please make a contribution?
All right, okay, please, yeah. Who is this?
I'm Beryl.
Yes, Beryl.
On your first question, whether it was fair, whether it was right for the employer, whether it was justified that the employer terminates the employee on grounds of poor performance, it was not right because as where there were no discussions on the employee's performance or an attempt to assist this employee to improve the performance that has been alleged as poor, then in this case, there was no appraisal, there are no records, then it is not justified that the employee was terminated on grounds of poor performance.
Thank you, Beryl. So I think we all agreeing. Let's find out. Let's find out what happened. Of course, especially in cases of pregnancy, we are picking pregnancy. I know it's a gray area. We are picking pregnancy because it's just one of the key areas we choose to focus on. but towards the tail end, I will just give you and highlight what happens in other scenarios. Like in such situation, HR is not just tested on performance management, but of course on fairness, legal compliance, and human judgment. This is actually a practical case. It's a practical case that you can find in the case law. It's a very practical case you can find in the case law. So if Washira is here and Mugo Waweru advocates, please forgive me. It was not my intention, but I'm just using this for educational purposes. So this is a case of Machira versus Mugo Waweru Associates. Of course, it gives us a very powerful lessons on how to handle performance and pregnancy cases so that we don't expose our employer to liability. Now, what was the status? This particular employee was on probation. The trigger event in this case, this employee applied for maternity leave. It was denied. Maternity leave alleged poor performance, and later this particular employee was terminated. Now, the key legal question here, because now on our there's a last presentation I mentioned that I know sometimes we struggle between the issues of facts and the issues of the facts of law. So now here we are looking at a very pertinent legal question. This particular employee was terminated. Was this termination lawful and was it fair? Was it lawful and was it fair? Now, the key issues before the court. Now, what were the courts looking? What were the key questions that the court were asking themselves? Was performance proven and properly assessed? That was the case of performance. The process. Was the employee given fair hearing? Another pertinent question here, was denial of maternity leave lawful? Discrimination. Was termination linked to pregnancy? Now, what did the court find? The court found that termination was unfair, of course. Performance was not recently conducted. Remember, if I take you back at my scenario, there was no actually appraisal. There was no appraisal that was conducted. There was no structured feedback that was given to this particular employee, and there was no documentation. No actually documentation took place on any discussion that happened. No documented discussion had taken place, and so nothing had happened. So the court looked at the process and they said the termination was unfair and the performance assessment was not properly conducted. And that means the due process was not followed. Kindly refer to Section 44, Section 41 of the Employment Act. Section 41 of the Employment Act was violated and maternity leave was wrongfully denied. And the aspect of discrimination was established. What was the outcome? An employee awarded 12 months compensation. I don't know how much this employee was earning. Probably, of course, I've forgotten the figures, but assume this particular employee was earning a salary of like, give or take around 300,000 per month. Take 300,000 per month, multiply by 12. This is the amount of money that you have to pay an employee who is not even working. So this itself is a liability. Now, what are some of the key mistakes that we are learning from this case? There's no proper appraisal. There's no participatory evaluation of performance. And what was the legal risk there? There was weak defense on performance. So even if the employer, in their own mind, or there were key facts that this particular employee was performing, but the fact that there was no proper appraisal, it weakened their defense on the ground of performance, terminating this particular employee on the account of performance. 2, sudden poor performance claim. No prior feedback of documentation. You cannot just wake up one day and decide that this particular employee is not performing. So the court rejects the performance justification, because now, how will you say this particular employee is not performing while no feedback has been given, no clear targets have been given, and this particular employee, there's no even documented feedback or discussion that has happened? Denial. It's actually discrimination in law. Denial of maternity leave based on probation status. Employee is entitled to maternity leave as stipulated in the Employment Act. 33 months of maternity leave as stipulated. So anything less than that, it's a discrimination under the law. I repeat, whether the employee is on probation or not, whether the employee is on probation, whether you employ me today, I'm on probation, on a 3-month probation, and this particular employee gets pregnant, and you deny this particular employee right to go on a maternity, that is a discrimination on law, and it's an offense. Substituting leave. Now, this HR, I don't know. I don't know who how clever this particular HR was, but instead of asking the employee instead of granting this particular employee to take their maternity leave, they're now asking this employee to take study leave. I don't know how many study leave this employee were granting. So that was itself was misinterpretation of the law. Please always refer to the Employment Act. Even this particular study leave, I doubt if it's in the Employment Act. If it's in the Employment Act, someone can type and give me the exact clause where it is. But telling an employee to take study leave instead of maternity leave is a misinterpretation of the law. So this particular this person was misadvised. Two, there was no show cause or disciplinary process. So this was actually an automatic unfair termination process. It was actually unfair termination. The fact that there's no show cause, the fact that there was no disciplinary process, it was an automatic unfair termination. There are a mix of issues. Performance used to mask pregnancy issues. So I don't know whether this particular employer was afraid of admitting liability, but there were mixed issues. Pegging performance and bringing pregnancy issues. So there's high risk of discrimination in such cases. Now, what are some of the key lessons that a child can learn? Performance must be genuine. You cannot be created after the fact, and must be documented over time. Performance-related issues must always be documented over time. Appraisal must be participatory. Employee must be involved. There's no unilateral assessment. It must be bilateral. So all parties must be involved. Employee must always be involved. Our pregnancy is protected under law. Applies even during probation. No exemption is allowed. So at any given point, will you say that since you are on probation, we are just going to give you 1 month maternity leave? It is wrong. It is against the law. Pregnancy is protected. It applies during probation. So give employee their full maternity leave days. Context matters. Life situation must be considered. Adjust approach to performance. Like we said, life happens. Faith has mentioned much about that, and she has given even us guidelines. So how do we adjust when such issues happen? When life happens, when an employee who was really performing well suddenly got pregnant, and this pregnancy started affecting how she performs, how do you adjust to accommodate this particular employee? And of course, the most important process is mandatory. Fair hearing is required. Always follow Section 41 of the Employment Act. Now, what will HR have done in this case? Performance issues, the HR will have conducted appraisal with employees' participation. This was to build credible evidence. Feedback, to communicate gaps clearly and early. 3, avoids, and of course, this also will have helped to avoid surprise performance issues. Pregnancy, approved maternity leave. This is not a rocket science where you have to seek approval. Let me consult with the management. No, there's no issues of consultation. When employee is pregnant and they are due to deliver, approve that maternity leave. That is a legal obligation. That is a bare minimum. Why it matters? It matters because it's a legal obligation. Now, provide reasonable support or flexibility. Why does this matter? It shows fairness. Anytime you support an employee, and even in that during their period of they fail to perform, and you have given them reasonable support that you can prove in the court of law, and you terminate them on such a condition, then you'll show that you have given them that your process has been fair, that you have accommodated this employee, you have taken consideration of their situation, and you have helped them during that time. Then what happened pre-termination? Issue show cause letter and hold hearing. And if anytime you accuse an employee and issue them with a show cause letter and hold a hearing, this is it's a requirement. It's a bare minimum in the under the Employment Act of Kenya, and it's necessary because it's compliant with the law. Decision based on objective evidence. It matters because it is defensible in the court of law. So when you go to the court of law, your evidence must show. Now, high risk areas from this case. What are some of the HR risk areas you have seen? There are discrimination claims, high financial and reputational risk. That itself has an impact. You cannot be known as an employer that discriminates people. You cannot be known as an employer that discriminate pregnant women, of course, and people with special need at work. When people with special need, unfair termination, of course, look at the impact on the employer. This particular employee was paid up to 12 months compensation. There was lack of documentation. So the impact is that this particular employer paid a lawyer, went to court, and still lost the case. So there was a weak legal defense and poor HR judgment. There was there's loss of trust and credibility. Now, I built a checklist from this case law, from this case. These are some of the pertinent questions you should ask yourself, even before you decide to terminate this particular employee, even before you even decide to take even that disciplinary process, before you even decide to call it a disciplinary process. If it's a performance issue, did we conduct a proper appraisal? Always ask yourself that question. Did we conduct a proper performance appraisal? What is HR action here? Ensure employees' participation. In all this process, ensure that there's adequate participation. Documentation. Do we have evidence of performance issues? Before you claim, before you use performance as a defense of terminating an employee, do you have evidence of performance? And what action do we call ourselves here? Maintain proper records. Let's keep records. When we have those clear targets, let employees sign. Put them in a file. When there's a discussion regarding performance, let's document it, have it. Ensure we are building a culture where we are giving of documentation, and so that such issues do not occur. Pregnancy. Have we respected the maternity rights? And what is the HR action here? Approve leave as required. I say there's no management approval here. There's no board approval. Maternity rights must be respected. Fairness. Are we treating the employee objectively? Or we have some sort of biases? When you have biases, you might not treat this particular employee objectively. These are some of the questions you have to ask yourself when you find yourself in this situation. And about the process, question your process. Have you followed Section 41 of the Employment Act? Always go and refer to that Section 41. What does the law say? What have other employers done, and what has the verdict been? So your action here as HR is to conduct a fair hearing. Lastly, we justify termination. By the time you write that termination letter, anytime you draft a termination letter, there are like two things that might happen. This particular employee might just decide, go, akuachie Mungu. Some will say, nimekuachia Mungu, I will not fight you back. But there's a serious litigator. You'll meet a serious litigator that will go to court, and they will claim unfair termination. If today you stand before the court of law, can you justify that this termination was fair? Do you have evidence at hand to justify this termination? And what must you prove? You have to prove that you have a valid reason, and two, you must prove that there's a fair process that was given. And trust you me, you cannot the court. Conclusion. Performance management cannot override employee rights. Every employee has a right. Their maternity rights, especially in situations like pregnancy. For HR, the issue is not just performance, the issue is how performance is handled. Like, yes, it is a fact that this, maybe it was fact. They had the fact that this particular employee was performing. But how was the issue handled? Was the issue handled in accordance with the law? Final call, of course, do not use performance to justify unlawful decision. Do not ignore protected employee rights. Make sure you know all the protected employee rights. When an employee is sick, how do you handle a sick employee at workplace? When an employee is injured at work, how do you handle this particular employee? When you have an employee with disability, with special need, how do you accommodate this particular employee? Know that any employee with special cases are protected, have protected rights. You have to know that, and do not skip the process. Before I proceed to my closing remark, I just want to give you some few cases of pregnancy and fair termination. There's a case of Yasmin Josephine Mokaya versus Kithure Kindiki and associate. The court found the terminating employee due to pregnancy violates both the Constitutional Employment Act. The court awarded significant, and that there's also a case of Esther Nduati, and of course that case you could refer to it. Let's look at our performance management system. There's this one of the most interesting cases you can refer to it, Naomi Lusiche, Barclays of Kenya. The court ruled that performance management system cannot be used as an independent mode of termination. The court found that performance management system cannot be used as an independent mode of termination. The judge noted that purpose of performance systems should be to identify performance, understand why employers are underperforming, and a way to rectify that. There's also a case of Vincent Namai versus National Bank of Kenya. It's a landmark case that the court found it wanted a branch manager. The court ruled that employer was fixated on performance code and ignored employee grievances, such as the impact on COVID-19 pandemic and lack of support. The court ruled that the poor performance cannot be visited upon the employee if it stems from the employer's own defensive. There's also a case of illness and performance. There's a case of James Samba Mukala versus Tukai Limited. The court emphasizes that where performance is cited, the employer must demonstrate a clear appraisal policy. If the performance decline is related to health, the employer is expected to offer support, guidance, and even alternative employment, like of course medical deployment where possible. There's also a case of Libata Njau Njoka versus Magadi Limited. The court held that if an employee is unable to meet standards despite training and counseling, especially due to capacity issue, the employer should offer alternative role before considering termination. I know someone is about to ask a question. What if I followed the process? But now the court here held that in this case, if the employee is unable to meet standard despite training and counseling, I don't know what this particular employee was going through, especially due to capacity issue, the employer should offer alternative role before considering termination. The burden of proof, let's talk about burden of proof. To win a case for dismissal, to win any case based on performance, an employer must prove a valid reason. You must have a valid reason. You must have a valid reason. The underperformance must be real and documented. 2, causality. There must be a link. The performance must be attributed to the employee, not external factor. The poor performance must be attributed to the employee, not external factors. This is what I mean. There must be a link. Let me put it in a layman's way. There must be a link on why you are on the performance of the employee versus is determination. So this performance must arise from must be attributed to the employee, attributable to the employee and not external factors. There might be external factors. One, it can be like illness. This particular employee must be sick. This employee has worked for you for over 30 years and they develop a sickness all of a sudden, or they were working in the process of working wakapanda juu ya ngazi and they break their leg and they can no longer be performing to the optimum standard that was required. Then you cannot say this is a performance issue. This is an external factor, and therefore it cannot stand as a way of terminating an employee. And again, fair procedure. The employer must be given hearing, time to improve. If there's always time to improve, and necessary support and training. Now, my final call. When life happens at work, HR must lead both by compliance and compassion. Because in court, process always outweighs the intentions. Any question? I'm done with my presentation. So we are having more of this discussion. We'll be discussing more of this. We're having a summit Our summit is like in a week or 2 weeks time from now. We are having our summit on 9th and 10th in the month of April, and we'll be talking about strategic performance management. I'll be talking all the component of performance management. So by the time you are leaving that summit, you'll have mastered the performance management from end to end with real case laws. We'll have dealt with what the law says, how to manage performance, and we'll also balance what does your CEO expect from you to manage performance. So anyone that is interested in this summit, please reach out to me or Chebet. We'll drop the link for this particular registration so that whoever is interested can reach out to us. Then we can see how we can share further details so that you can join us. So thank you, and I welcome questions and comments. Questions and comments? Reactions? Any reaction? Any reaction? Shebet, are you there?
Yes, then I am. I'm really looking forward maybe to having some practical scenarios from any of us here. Feel free, we
Right.
can
So
migrate.
Eric is asking, how do you deal with Eric is asking, how do you deal with the employee who gets pregnant and and proceed on maternity during a probation before confirm or extend their probation and indication before she proceed on maternity leave? I think we have answered that using the case law. So maternity is a protected right, employee right. So there's no reason even to extend probation, because when you extend that probation, this particular employee will say that you have discriminated me, that you have extended my probation because I am on maternity. When this particular employee goes on maternity, offer them the full support but do not extend their probation on account of on pregnancy, that this particular employee is not working. Now we say this particular employee is not performing, so let's extend the probation. If this particular employee resigns and go and claim constructive dismissal, you might lose the case. Any other question? Thank you. Eric, I hope we have answered your question, or if you needed further clarification, you could unmute and ask the question. Thank you, Samba. The Samba is saying the discussion is so awakening, they like it. Thank you. John says, I worked at an employer who used to give flexi time. A mom could come in 1 hour late and leave 1 hour early. I think there are such employers, and I know it also depends with the nature of the business that your organization is in. So thank you, Joanne, for that. Eric says very insightful. So any comment? Chebet, back to you if you have any final comment, because hii group ni kama watu wamelewa kila kitu.
Thank you, Dan. So this is just my parting shots. We as to the HR professionals, the line managers, to supervisors, to entrepreneurs and business owners, let us always have systems that accommodate these life scenarios. It goes beyond just compliancy. It builds on the employee retention strategies. It builds on employer brand out there. It is something that one would really would want to be associated with. It really brings about productivity. It is a motivation. So it is beyond compliance. That's my parting shot. And truly, let us reflect on our systems at workplaces. Let us be very creative. Let us think beyond the policies and the procedures that we build at workplaces. Asante sana, Dan, and thank you for joining us.
There's a very interesting question by Jen Mutisia. Karibu, tuambie kitu. Hi, Jen Mutisia.
Well done. I've enjoyed following the conversations. Yes, I've enjoyed following the conversations. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you. There's a very interesting question. Suppose an employee contract ends while they are on maternity leave. Will it be considered discriminatory? Contract is not renewed, most likely. most likely the employee might use this defense. But of course, fixed-term contracts are termination on its own, unless there's a very funny clause. Unless there's a very funny clause that says that performance will be renewed on mutual, but fixed-term contracts are termination on its own. So when they are well tailored, an employee it's supported during that period. So I don't think there might be an issue. But if there are funny clauses, if they are not worded properly, it could be a discriminatory. But most likely it can be. It's a risk, but make sure we tailor our contracts in a way that they do not create legitimate expectation. Any other question, please, before we close it up? We'll discuss more on this on our summit. Also, allow me to share the link to our. Let me share the link to our WhatsApp group so that those who want to take the conversation to our WhatsApp group can join us. We'll share more information there. Just a moment. Let me share the link to those who want to join. I hope I have gotten that. Let me just do that in a moment. All right, that's the link to our WhatsApp group. That is a link to our WhatsApp group. Just a moment, what's happening? There are no current participants in the waiting room. Just sorry. So that is our link to our WhatsApp group. So whoever wants to join our WhatsApp group can join. It's a group where we share knowledge. We cannot. Let me just also look for our channel so that I can share the link to our channel. You could follow us. We also share as many things as possible. We share content so that you can get more insight on that. But please join us. Whoever wants to join us can please reach out to us, can reach out to Jane so that we support you. If you need, if you feel like you need a letter to your employer, we can draft a letter to you. We can issue with invoices that your employer can pay this to you. If you go and show value on why you have learned and why the employer should support you, I feel now you have gotten what you need to go and convince your employer to pay for this particular. If you are more than 2 employees, we can give you a subsidy, can give you a discount, we can discount it. So please reach out to either of us, reach out to Jen, reach out to us. If you follow our WhatsApp link, WhatsApp channel, you'll also get more details on our summit. So please prepare. So thank you. And if no another question, allow me to end the meeting. You can leave at your own way. Beryl says, thank you, Mastermind, for very informative and insightful session. Thank you, Beryl, for joining. Jen says, thank you. It was very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Who else? Please, you are free to leave. You are free to leave the meeting. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Eric, I lost connection. What is the response to my question that the staff who gone on maternity and terminated on account of satisfactory? Eric, you cannot deny an employee right to go on maternity even when they're on probation. Maternity is a protected right, employee right, and it must be granted without any condition. It is one of the unconditional, protected employee right. When you have female employees, they get pregnant, grant them. When you have male employees, as long as they provide you with the evidence that they have gotten their child, give them that paternity leave. Probation, so I'm not going to grant you that paternity leave. And again, for paternity leave, you don't have to be a husband to be a father. There's nowhere in the law that says you have to be a husband to be a father. Do not ask for proof of marriage certificate that if this indeed is your child, that indeed this is your wife. Paternity leave, grant, and it's an unconditional leave. It's protected in there. in the Employment Act. I hope I've answered your question, Eric. If I've not, please unmute. Thank you for joining. So
Yes. Yeah, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, it is not just the right for the employee to go on maternity, but the issue is performance during the probation, and now she has proceeded on maternity. You know, that one now will still affect confirmation. So can
Just
you
pause and
proceed
address
and
the issues because
terminate?
You pause, of
Not
course.
not because of maternity, but because of performance. But it's only that now that she is on maternity, can you proceed and terminate the probation?
You cannot.
I know it can be like
you cannot terminate. Why will you terminate that? That employee is not even at work. They will claim it's a discrimination, most likely. Wait for them to come on maternity.
So if the duration of
wants to
extension,
respond.
but by the time they are coming back, now the probationary period has elapsed.
Allow Jen.
So that is the dilemma.
Jen, please respond.
So, Eric, that's a good question and it's very common. But in your own opinion, what are you assessing? This person has been away for 3 months. They are not performing. So what would you be assessing? Will it sound fair? Remember, we have something called the Fair Administrative Act. If I've been away for 3-4 months, I come back and you're assessing my performance when I was away, what exactly are you assessing? And the other guys can feel free to contribute. So the thing is, you have to be very fair. If someone is on probation and they are pregnant, they are pregnant and they have to go on a maternity, it's okay to extend that probation, not because they didn't perform. It has to be very clear. We are assessing because we are not able to assess your performance and fit for the role, not because they were not a good performer. But you cannot terminate them because they were away. So context matters. Context matters. You cannot appraise me when I'm away and not at work. I hope I've answered you, Eric.
Yes, you have answered to some extent.
Ask your follow-up so that we answer kabisa.
Because it's let's say the employee, the probation has been extended for 3 months.
Post-maternity or during maternity? Post-maternity or during maternity?
It has been extended during before they proceed on maternity. So during the extension, because you can extend up to 6 months. So during the extension, which you have extended for the last 3 months, now they